conflict, so he was going to try to help us establish a quorum so we could get started. But Chris, can you hear me? I sent you a message, but I haven't.
Yep. Yes, I am here. Yep,
all right. So, very good. We'll go ahead and get the meeting started then, and hopefully we'll get a few more people to join us. So let me start the recording. Kurt, are you ready?
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Sales Tax Audit Committee meeting for September 29th. Before we get started, we'll have roll call. So I believe we have Amber Nichols.
Yep, here.
And we have Chris Cohart.
Here.
And we have Larry Chance.
Here.
We have 3 present, so we have a quorum. So I'm checking the waiting room, make sure I didn't miss anybody. That looks like everybody. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first item on the agenda is to elect a chair for the upcoming term. Are there any nominations for chair?
1, 2, 3, not it. Come on, Chris. New kid on the block.
You're thrown right in. This is Chris. Thrown right in there.
I warned you I would do that.
I know.
Larry, are you interested in being chair?
I would be fine with it. I could care. I really don't care one way or the other.
Well, then I'm going to nominate Larry.
I will second that nomination.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of Larry being chair of the Sales Tax Audit Committee signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and Larry Chance is chair of the Sales Tax Audit Committee.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Larry.
Larry, I will help you as much as you'd like. The next item on our agenda is for you to select, for the committee, excuse me, to select a vice chair.
I would be open for nominations for vice chair.
I'm guessing that Chris doesn't really mind. I will volunteer to be vice chair.
Are there any other nominations?
I will second Amber's nomination.
Then we'll make a vote on it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is the 2021 annual report. And Jeremy, I assume that you will present that for us.
Yes, I will. Give me just 1 second to share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So the 2021 annual report has been prepared for your consideration and hopefully for your submission to the City Commission for their approval. As we've done in the past, this report is split out by the various sales taxes that are under the charge of the committee. So we start the report with the 0.3% sales tax for streets and infrastructure. And it makes it a little more confusing, but also fire apparatus. So the tax was initially passed in 2008 by the voters. The primary reasons, as I stated, are for residential street maintenance and improvement to high traffic areas. The sales tax, according to the voters, can be spent on anything from streets to sidewalks to trails to equipment to storm sewers. And then there is also an additional caveat that it can be spent on fire apparatus and equipment. And so this tax was renewed by the voters in April of 2019 for 10 years. And what we have in our annual report is we start with the budget. The budget for this sales tax was $5,347,000. And this sales tax had unspent taxes from prior years at the beginning of 2021 of $533,645,000. The taxes collected year to date were actually 6.3 million, so better than our budget projection, as we saw the city start to rebound from all of the trials and the travails of COVID-19. And then what you have listed is an itemization by project of how that money was spent. On the back of the report, we take each project and then split it out by vendor, so you can see who the money went to and what it was for. If you have any questions about any of that, I'd be happy to answer those questions. The total of all expenditures from the sales tax in 2021 is just over 3.9 million. So at the end of 2021, we have $2,986,534 available for future projects of this type. Would you like me to continue? Does anybody have any questions?
I would say if there are no questions, just keep going.
Very good.
It's just a quick question. Do we have
Sure.
any, since I'm new to this, I'm reading the ordinance, is there any requirement to maintain a certain fund balance on these, or is it something we need to be expending, ensure that are expended fully within any given year?
Jeremy, one of the finance directors, that's a good question. There is no requirement in the ordinance for a fund balance. The city commission has a fund balance policy. And for these three taxes in particular, that fund balance requirement is 60 days of operating expenditures and cash on hand. I'd say the challenge that we have is that in all three of these sales taxes, there's other funds that are also collected by the city that aren't sales tax. And so I don't want to give the impression that we reserve 60 days of sales taxes. We reserve 60 days of the entire fund. So in the transit fund, that would include fees that people pay for permits, bus passes, or everyday fares. In the housing trust fund, that would include a $350,000 annual appropriation from the city commission of general fund dollars into that fund. And then for the capital sales tax, there's also miscellaneous reimbursements that we get from the county on shared projects, investment income, et cetera. So there's other revenues besides just the sales tax in these three funds. That's what the footnote at the bottom of each report indicates. Is it's really challenging to sort of track the sales tax separate from the activity. But that's what this report is doing, is essentially looking at just the sales tax dollars and how those were spent. And on just those sales tax dollars, there is no reserve requirement. So we could spend 100% of what's available. Really, the only requirement at that point becomes that we can't violate state law. So we can't spend more than the budget.
Right. With this, sorry, this is Chris Gohart. With the report as it currently stands, we started at 5, ended at 2.9. So would it be fair to say that this increase in this is kind of the entire fund that's there to ensure that stays within the 60-day city commission kind of standard for fund balance in that particular fund in its entirety? Does that make sense? That we didn't spend as much as we could have in this fund because of the overall, or this particular sales tax dollars, because the fund as a whole needed to maintain that 60-day fund balance requirement.
Yes and no. Really what happened is sales were more robust than we originally thought when we wrote the 21 budget. So these are sales in excess of what we had initially anticipated. However, you have to keep in mind that the 2020 budget was significantly less than what we thought it would be because of the COVID pandemic. And so a lot of projects got put on hold. And so these excess dollars that we received in 2021 will go toward those projects that were deferred and other projects that the City Commission identified in the 2023 budget. So the next sales tax that we'll discuss is the 0.2% sales tax for public transportation. Again, this sales tax began in 2008. The voters approved the revenue for the entirety of the operation of the public transit system. And then in 2019, this was renewed as well for another 10 years. The budget for 2021 was $4.2 million. The unspent taxes from the prior year were $2.9 million. The current year taxes collected were just over $4.2 million. You can see our expenditures of just under $3.3 million, leaving available funding for future projects of $3.9 million. And I would say that this 3.9 plus the amount we're going to talk about in just a minute, this 4.8, are what's been earmarked for that multimodal facility that's being built. So there, in 2008, we had 3 sales taxes, the capital sales tax, the transit sales tax, and then this 0.05% for public transportation expansion. However, that sales tax sunsetted March 31st of 2018, and then the voters beginning in April of 2018 took that 0.05% that was for public transportation and moved it to housing initiatives, which we'll look at here in just a second. So this portion, the 0.05%, sunsetted, and that money has just been sitting there earmarked for the multimodal facility project. And so these two are separate, but kind of combined now, if you will. We're still tracking them separately so that the voters can see how those dollars that they gave the city were spent. But we talk about them sort of together in terms of the projects, because the multimodal facility has about 4.8 million left in the expansion sales tax, and the rest of it will come from the operating fund of the transportation sales tax. Did that make sense, or does anybody have any questions about that? And then the last sales tax is the 0.05% for public housing that began April 1st of 2019. So this sales tax had a budget of $878,000 for 2021. The unspent taxes from the prior year were $834,000. The current year taxes collected was $1,059,000. The City Commission approved contracts of $225,000, which leaves an available balance of about $1.7 million. And what I can say on this one is, again, we're looking at the 2021 report. Some of that 1.6 million has been earmarked for projects in 22, and the rest has been allocated to the 23 budget. So while there is a substantial reserve at the end of 2021, we believe by the end of 2023 that most of those dollars will be earmarked toward projects to help those in housing difficulties. And so that is the sales tax report. In addition to that, we have, as I mentioned, a little bit more detail, breaking out by project, vendor, and amount, and the type of work that was performed for each of the projects in the various sales taxes. So the first 2 pages are the infrastructure sales tax. Excuse me, I think I got it all on one. Yay me. The second one is the transportation sales tax. And the last one is the housing tax. And that is all I have on this report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Anybody have any questions? If not, you want to just move on to year-to-date 2022?
Actually, sorry, before we do that, the ordinance that established this group says that you all are supposed to authorize that this report be sent to the city commission for their consideration. So a motion would be in order.
I will make a motion to send this report to the city commission for their approval.
I second that. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Very good. Give me just 1 second here. That's right. Can everybody see my screen again?
Yes.
Very good. So this is a report in the exact same format, just different data. This is for January through July of 2022. So the 2022 budget, the sales tax for capital and infrastructure is just under $7 million. As you can see, the unspent balance is the same as what was on the 2021 report, just under $3 million. Year to date, January through July of 2022, we have collected $3.8 million. You can see here are the projects that have been funded by the sales tax. We've spent just over 1.5 million. So currently there's 5.3 million with about half the year left to go. Does anybody have any questions on these projects?
This is Chris. Do we have a projection of what other projects we intend to utilize the sales tax for in the back half of the year?
I don't believe there'll be any different projects. I think what you'll see is just these projects with more dollars spent through them. Again, the challenge is that the sales tax is just one of the components of funding for these projects. So to get this report, we kind of have to split it out, but we don't necessarily have the budget in that same format. So it's fairly easy on the invoice side for me to show you how the money was spent. But we haven't asked the project managers to say, you know, how much is just sales tax versus how much of your total budget. For me to know how far through the sales tax allocation each of these projects are. But one of the things we're hoping to do with our new finance system is have a little better format where we'll see what was targeted or budgeted for the sales tax, how much was spent, and what's left.
Thank you.
Yep. The next sales tax is the one for public transit. The budget for 2022 is 4.6 million. So you can see the underspending is 3.9 million. We've currently collected just over 2.5 million. We have expenditures of just under 1.4 million, excuse me. So currently, as of July 31st, there's just over $5 million in this account available for transit projects. Again, it doesn't really show in this report, but the 2023 budget is really where this is earmarked to start the construction of the multimodal facility. And similarly with the expansion sales tax, you can see there's a little bit of design activity going on with the expansion sales tax so far year to date, but the lion's share of the project will be in 2023 for the multimodal facility.
Are these funds targeted just for the capital side of it, not operations?
The 0.05% is just the capital. the operations of the multimodal facility will be dovetailed into the 0.2% sales tax for public transportation.
Okay.
And then our last sales tax is the public housing sales tax. The budget for 2022 was just over 1.1 million. We've collected year to date 643,000. The city commission has approved 650,000. So we've now got available for future projects about 1.6 million. And again, if you look at our 2023 budget, we've earmarked those dollars for that. And just like the last one, we've got a spreadsheet here to show you how much was spent by vendor, by project, and what it was spent on. And here is the transit. So what you'll see once that new facility is open is the operating cost will be in the transit operating cost section of this report. And what's in that expansion sales tax is the planning for the new facility, the redesign of the routes once that new facility is online, expenditures regarding the electric buses or the expansion of the bus program, and then the design of the actual transfer facility.
Is there a target start date for construction, or is that still down the road a bit?
I believe that's still down the road a bit. Brandon, I don't want to throw you, but if you have it, I know that there's still public conversations happening, so I don't believe a start date has been identified. Is that
which project specifically?
a multimodal facility?
We are, last status update I had is we're preparing to go out to bid.
Okay.
There's still a couple of final agreements we're working on with KU regarding the land use.
Yep.
And once those are complete, then we do plan on going out to bid very soon.
Okay. So the multimodal facility looks like it's on a faster track than the downtown facility.
This is Chris. I assume the internal service charges here is kind of our indirect costs that we can charge against this.
Yes. The
is there like a criteria, or is there a maximum that we can charge as part of the ordinance or the bill that it passed for this?
Yeah. So the internal service charges are based on what the service is. For example, the Human Resources Department, their internal service charge is based on the number of FTE, full-time equivalent staff tied to that program. The Information Technology Department, theirs would be tied to the number of actual devices, so computers, laptops, mobile phones, et cetera. The Finance Department is simply an allocation of budget. So the Transit Department's budget divided by the total budget is their allocation of the Finance Department. And the City Manager's Office is a similar allocation based on appropriation. And so there's not necessarily a maximum per se other than the budget. And that's what the budget is derived on for the internal services. And so we charge back all those costs that are typically borne just by the property tax, so that utilities are paying their fair share of administrative charges. The sales taxes are paying their fair share, et cetera. And then that is the housing fund. So that is my report for January through July expenses, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you all may have.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Nope.
Looks like the last item on the agenda is talking about setting dates for future meetings, dates and times.
Sorry, before we move on, that same ordinance that I referenced states that you all are supposed to submit a report every 6 months. So,
Okay.
and a motion is in order to submit this report for the first 6 months.
Could I ask a quick question before we do the motion on the housing trust funds? Is that coming through the Affordable Housing Department, the allocation of those funds, or is that internal staff determination on those expenditures at 650?
Yes, so there's
by the city commission.
There's an Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and they make recommendations to the city commission. The city commission ultimately has these spending authorities. So these expenditures were made by the city commission on advice from the Affordable Housing Advisory Board.
And make a motion to what did you say? Accept and provide this report to the city commission as presented. Say that right?
Sounds good. I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Now moving on to timing for future meetings.
Yes. For those who have been on the board a while, we've had some difficulty in the past in establishing a quorum for the quarterly meetings. And candidly, my office has been pretty constrained this year with some staffing shortages and the installation of a new finance system. It really got us thinking that perhaps now would be a good time to go back to what the establishing ordinance required, which was a meeting every 6 months rather than quarterly. And so I wanted to present that to you all. The bylaws that this committee passed simply says that the board shall meet at a regular date and time and place as determined by a simple majority of the members. And then the ordinance that establishes this committee, ordinance 8349, says the committee will meet in a city facility. The committee shall comply with requirements of the Open Meetings Act and the Open Records Act. And sorry, I'm reading the wrong section. The committee shall designate a chair, which we've done today, who will be responsible for presiding over the meeting. The committee shall meet at least once every 6 months, and the chair, upon reasonable notice, shall be authorized to call any additional meetings as needed. And so in light of the staffing issues that we've had and the other issue that we've had of just getting a consistent quorum, we'd like to recommend that this group meet in, I think, February and August of each year. That way we can share the results of the final report in August, and we can share the first 6 months, or the next 6 months, if you will, in February.
Jeremy, do you have any, are you aware of why it changed to quarterly?
I'm not. I think it was trying to remember now. I think it was several years ago, and I think the committee wanted to meet just to make sure. I think there were a lot of capital projects going on at that time, and I think they felt it was important that they, keep track of the changing the projects. The city didn't used to have online portals and other ways for the public to gain access to our financial information. And so perhaps they felt this was more transparent to meet more often. But with our new finance system, there's actually going to be a citizen portal, and there's also going to be a financial portal. So The public will be able to essentially go out and look at checks, go out and look at contracts, look at whatever they would like to look at, to feel secure in the knowledge that the dollars that they've entrusted to the city are being spent in the way that they intended. And so for that reason, we believe that, just meeting every 6 months and providing these reports as are required by the ordinance would be sufficient to meet the mandate.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable.
How cumbersome is it to actually prepare the reports themselves? Would it be possible to just kick out quarterly reports and just meet semi-annually, or is there quite a bit of time involved in having to segregate these numbers from their total budget numbers?
I'm hoping it gets better with our new finance system, but it currently takes about 6 hours to put this report together.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can look at it once you get your new system in.
This is Chris Cohart. I was looking back at all the meetings and it didn't look like we have really met on a quarterly basis. Maybe that's because of the quorum issue that Jeremy was talking about. It kind of feels like our authority is pretty limited as an advisory board to just reviewing the funds collected and the funds spent. So it's almost like there's no action to be taken on a quarterly basis other than kind of a review and ensure we are doing what we're supposed to do. I mean, the housing authority is over affordable housing advisory board is reviewing is overseeing part of the money that we're kind of overseeing as well. And the CIP budget is for sure, city commission is managing that CIP budget on a 5-year basis. So I don't even know if there's decisions for us to be making on a quarterly basis. So I think I would probably tend to do the semi-annual because there's not a lot of action for us to take as it relates to this advisory board as a whole. If we had a little bit more oversight as to the funding, whether this is the right thing to do, I think it would make more sense to do more often. But I don't know that that's the case. I'm new here, so I would defer to the existing members.
No, I think that makes sense because it does look like we're kind of more of a review committee than we are an action type committee, if you will.
Right. Yeah, when I first got on, I remember we had one meeting where we started to try to talk about solving affordable housing, and it was like, no, that's not our job. Our job is to just make sure that the taxpayers' wishes as to where this money is allocated is indeed what's happening. And so I agree that I think just being the accountability to have these reports made at least twice a year to uphold that ordinance and, double check everything is completely acceptable.
I think that makes sense.
This is Chris. I'm never one that just wants to do the bare minimum just to check a box, but I also want to make sure that from a usage of staff and volunteer time, that there's some strategic advantage to doing that for both parties. And I don't know that there's a strategic advantage per se, but like maybe what Larry said, maybe there's an easier way to get these reports once the new software is implemented, and maybe at least having a quarterly report. I mean, from an oversight perspective, would be of value whether we meet or not. Maybe it's a value to have that report quarterly once the software permits that, and not a 6-hour endeavor for Jeremy and his staff to put this thing together.
We can certainly look into that. The new software will be online January of 2023. So if you all are in agreement, I think we would schedule our next meeting for January of 2023, and then maybe we can discuss it more then.
You mean February or January?
It would be January, so we can go over the last 6 August through December expenditures.
Okay.
This is Chris. Would January be enough time for you to put that report together, or does it make more sense like early February to ensure that you have time, staff has time to put that together?
Well, and knowing that transitions to new software systems don't always go totally smoothly, I would second that maybe give yourself a little bit of breathing room.
Those are fair comments. You're right. We typically meet the third week of the month. And so I was thinking by the third week of January, we might be okay. But if the committee is okay with the third week of February, that would certainly provide us more opportunity to ensure that we're prepared for the discussion.
I think that makes sense.
This is Chris. Is there anything in the ordinance? I didn't see anything in the ordinance from a timing perspective when we're supposed to get these reports to the city commission?
The only thing the ordinance says is once every 6 months. And so this one's in September. Technically, we wouldn't have to provide the next one until March. So if we do it in February, we'll be right there in that window.
Would we, this is Chris again, so thinking beyond the next one. So our next goal would be August. So just if we did February, we would need to have that meeting, that report done and to them by August. So we'd have enough time to have that meeting and get to the city commission.
Yeah, the August report wouldn't be a problem, but like I said, we'll meet in February and to determine if we do want to wait until August or if we want to resume the quarterly meetings.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think that would be good based on the bylaws that say a simple majority vote to establish the date and time. So if someone wanted to make a motion that the next meeting be the third Thursday in February of 2023, I think that would be in order.
I will make a motion that our next meeting be the third Thursday in February at 4 o'clock. So that makes it February 16th, 2023.
Second.
Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anything else for us, Jeremy?
There's nothing else that I have. Thank you.
Then we probably just need a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.